some
Yeah. Oh
the
yeah.
classic fall cold coming through.
No, the classic. The kids' first week at school. We go to school, come home, and sneeze in your mouth. Get away from me, children. Your sicknesses.
Hey,
Too late though.
hey.
Oh shit! What's going on here? What's going on? Is Brad still joining us?
Yeah, he should be right now. He's coming up right now. He's a member of this channel, so he should be good. I think we're live right now. So, how's everybody doing? We're gonna just wait for a little bit more people to come in. We're still waiting for one more guest to come on. I'm excited for this topic. It's actually a topic that Brad and I were gonna do on Thursday. But I ain't gonna lie to everybody. I was tired that day, and Thursday night was on, so we had to skip a little bit. But nevertheless, we are gonna go live in a second. Watching Pete, for Fernie. I'll tell you, in Husky Stadium, life is it's good today. Tar Heel, are you a Husky fan? Are you thinking the Huskies gonna win this year? They're gonna win the Pac-12.
I'll tell you who Tar Heel Nation is a fan of. Are you ready? Number one, NBA Youngboy. That's his number one, ride or die. He would do anything for NBA Youngboy. Number two is anybody that is anti-LeBron James. I think is just a category of human being. And then Paul George is number three.
Oh, he doesn't like Paul George.
No. These are people he loves.
Oh,
these
people
are
he
the
loves.
people,
Okay.
These are the people he believes in. I don't know if he believes in the Huskies.
I thought he was a UNC guy, but maybe not. I don't know.
He is a UNC guy, as far as I know. Maybe his allegiances are switching.
Oh, hey man, they're playing a pretty good team today. Number 11 Michigan State, so that'll be a fun one to watch if you're.
Can I tell you something? I haven't watched a game of college football in probably 10 years.
No way. That's cap.
I just couldn't care less. I couldn't
cap
care less.
I smell cap.
It is probably cap. I think I watched the Alabama.
You probably watched the Georgia.
I watched the national championship when Jalen Hurts got benched for Tua in the middle of the game. I think that was like 4 years ago. Maybe that wasn't 4 years ago. Was it 4 years ago? That actually, now that I say it, it does make sense though, because Tua has been in the league 2 years, 3 years. Yeah, must be. What do you think about Tua while we wait? Think he's good? I don't think he's good, Bernie.
He's mid.
I don't think he's
mid.
got it.
I think the problem with me is like Alabama quarterbacks and why I think, not to go on a different topic. Obviously we're talking about something else, most improved player, but I don't know, man. Like I'm not impressed with Jalen Hurts. I'm not impressed with Tua. Bryce Young is a little different, I will say, but at the same time, like I never trust an Alabama quarterback for whatever reason.
Are you trying to tell me you don't trust AJ McCarron?
I mean, I trust that he knows how to pick them, if you know what I mean.
I knew you were going to say it. Line that one up. Here's a softball for you, Bernie. There you
Blocked
go.
by James. Sorry, I'm watching the James blocking.
I kind of agree with you, though.
LeBron James.
What's up, Brad?
What up, y'all? Can you hear me pretty well?
It's a little muffled.
I'm about to switch to my headset on my Xbox.
Right, chill. Just doing a little bit of banter before we get going.
If you had to pick Jalen Hurts or Tua right now, Bernie, who'd you take?
Oh God,
I'd take Jalen. I'd take Jalen Hurts. Not even.
You take Jalen?
I don't even think it's a question.
I'd probably take only because I'm a lefty. I'll take Tua. I'll go Tua. He's got a noodle arm. He's got a noodle arm.
The problem is, dude, I don't even see Tua run very well. Like I don't even see that anymore. I feel bad, dude, because I felt like he really had it in college, and then I don't know. I don't know, man.
I think it's just lefty quarterbacks. There's just something about them that is just. I think teams just don't like them.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, when's the last great lefty quarterback ever? I can't think of a lefty quarterback that's ever been like that guy.
I mean, Steve Young back in the day, right?
Yeah, but that's like the only dude. Oh my goodness.
My number one, I always loved Michael Vick because he was left-handed.
Oh, true. Man, it's crazy how far, like, if you think about like how it wasn't that long ago, but it feels that long ago.
What do you mean? Since a good left-handed quarterback?
Well, no, like thinking about like Vince Young and all the guys in like the early 2000s.
Oh yeah.
But
God, dude, I was so sold on Vince Young back in the day. I was
I
sure.
have his
We
jersey in
were.
my closet.
I know you do. I remember it. We were so in. I was like, this guy is gonna be the next guy, and he kind of was for like a year or two.
Yeah. So everybody, this is now turning into a NFL quarterback debate. This is what the show
Left-handed
is going to be.
quarterbacks.
Left-hand quarterback, specifically left-handed quarterback debate. Let me know in the comment section down below who's your all-time favorite lefty quarterback.
Is it Mark Brunell or Tim Tebow? Who do you guys take?
Mark Brunell. Oh my goodness. He was supposed to
Remember,
be
have you ever seen that video of Mark Brunell picking his nose and wiping it on Mark Sanchez? Or is it reverse?
I think
it might be reverse.
It might be reverse.
I think Mark Sanchez is like picking his nose and he wipes it on the back of Mark Brunell's coat. Pretty funny.
Jeez. All right, so we're still waiting
All
for
right.
Brad to come on here. Is there anything? I mean, there's not really that much news out there per se. I mean, again, this is more of the quiet time. Nothing really going on too much, but in the next couple of weeks, we will be starting to get more into our preseason predictions. So I'm excited about that. I think Pete, you're also excited as well. I know that we're gonna be hyping it up, promoting it as like heck. I'm gonna make sure that stuff is promoted on all social media. So if you do follow us on the Charge, YouTube channel. We also have TikTok as well. I'm excited to maybe I'll put the TikTok link somewhere, and you can just follow us and clips. I'm gonna put it out tomorrow. I'm gonna put out the clip of Pete reacting to my Jokic. My Jokic take.
Your Jokic snub is what I'm calling it.
The Jokic snub.
Jokic is what it was. While we wait here for Brad, a couple little things I'll point out and we could talk about for a few minutes.
Okay.
Did you see that the Victor Wembanyama? Did you see he just measured at 7'4" in bare feet?
Mm-hmm.
Does that concern you at all? Does that freak you out?
Not at all.
Really, Bernie?
Nope.
Dude, I can't help it, dude. It's unprecedented, man. He's 18. How many dudes over 7'4" have ever over 7'2" have ever stayed healthy? I'm not saying I hope it. I'm just saying you got to think about it. It's a little worrisome for sure.
I think he's good, man.
I hope you're right. I mean, his body is like, if he doesn't get too heavy, if he keeps his weight right and doesn't get too muscular or stay too skinny, it's almost like a balancing act. You have to be right in between.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Tim Duncan is the greatest big man of all time, in my opinion, or one of the greatest big man of all time. Excuse me, let me not just outright say he's the greatest, but he's one of the best big men of all time because he was so consistently the same size. That's a theory.
True.
That's a deep-seated theory of mine. I think he truly kept his body at the same exact size his whole career for a perfect reason, and that's just his body acclimated to being that size. That was what was wrong with AD last year. He got too big. He got too muscular.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. Again, I think it'll be fine. I think once we see him in action again is what I'm going to be excited about because obviously the injury bug has continued. Again, you guys can watch my YouTube analysis on him. Still working on the Scoot Henderson, which they're actually going to be playing in a couple weeks like we reported earlier. So I'll be reporting that and I'll also talk about kind of Scoot Henderson as well. But yeah, I mean, I think he'll be fine. I think both the guys will be great. But I think Victor Wembanyama is just a different breed, man. I think he actually has the chance to be one of the greatest. If, like you talked about, he can stay healthy, maintain that weight that he needs to stay, consistently playing at least 70 plus games in the NBA.
Let me give you. No, go for it.
No, the only thing I was going to say is that I think 70 has to be the benchmark for players now. Because, I mean, again, we all should say 82 games, but I think if you can play 70 or more, I think that's kind of my sweet spot of okay, you're pretty good for like an all-time great player.
I'd say 70 games consistently a season is good. And here's the rub with this: 26 players in NBA history over 7'3", and 3 of those players have made it to the Hall of Fame. Arvydas Sabonis, Ralph Sampson, and Yao Ming. Those are the 3, and they all had a ton of injury history themselves. So it's definitely something to monitor. But I mean, he doesn't play I don't know all 26 of those players, but I could guarantee you he doesn't play like probably any of them. So you never know. I mean, maybe just shooting it more, kind of whatever it is he ends up doing. Like, I would love to see Wembanyama like actually like taking over some ball handling responsibility. Like, imagine how unguardable that would be if he could actually carry that over into the NBA. He's taking it down the court, 7'4". Oh my God. A freak show, dude. It's like the game in Space Jam at the end of the first one. He's the blue guy.
He's the blue guy?
Yeah, dude.
Like one of those 2K players.
The guy with the buck teeth. I think he's got like big old buck teeth, that blue guy. All right, here, one more, Bernie. I got one more little thing for you.
Okay. And then I think, Brad, are you here right now?
Yo, what's up?
All right. There. Oh, my goodness. So crisp.
Oh
yes, sir. Xbox headset. This Discord on Xbox is nice.
Yes. Discord on Xbox.
It does sound good.
They partnered up. Did they partner up with Discord, or they just kind of have like this is like a separate app? I don't even know how.
Yeah, they partnered with them. If you link your Xbox accounts on the Discord app, you can use Discord on Xbox.
Yeah, I just saw that. They must have just launched that because they were advertising it all over Discord today.
Yeah.
Let me read this comment from Tar Heel Nation. This is too funny. Chet is the white Greg Oden, and Big Vic is just a French Sean Bradley. I'm all the way out on these guys.
French Sean Bradley? What?
Tar Heel Nation, I am convinced you've never seen anything more than a picture of this guy. I'm convinced.
That's Tar Heel Nation for you, man. That is Tar Heel Nation.
I trade Paul George. I mean, I'd just take Paul George over Victor Wembanyama and Chet, straight up. That's Tar Heel Nation. He'd take Pat Bev over Chet and Victor Wembanyama.
That's crazy.
Oh my goodness.
I bet he would. I feel like we could ask some real questions to Tar Heel Nation in the chat. I bet he would take Jay Crowder over them too.
Oh my goodness.
I know he loves Jay Crowder.
Jay Crowder's the biggest fraud in the playoffs. I've never seen him more. I don't think I've ever seen a bigger. I mean, Brad, have you seen a bigger fraud than Jay Crowder? There might be one.
I mean, James Harden's pretty close, but
James Harden. But I'm talking about like that role player. I mean, I think about that.
I agree.
I think about that finals for the Heat in the bubble against the Lakers.
Everything.
I mean,
everything.
No player has coasted off of a good defensive showing in one opening round of the playoffs ever more than Jay Crowder. I mean, he will literally live off of that one series against LeBron.
Which all the Suns when he was on the Suns.
Yeah, that's literally all people. That's all people talk about. That changed the perception about him completely. I've heard people say the wildest things about Jay Crowder ever since that happened.
Oh man.
I would. Oh my God.
Do you want to start, Pete? Do you have one more thing, or do you want to start with our main topic of the day?
I was just gonna say. I was just gonna ask you what you thought about the Lakers signing Dennis Schroeder.
I like it. I think it's a good signing.
I mean, for the contract. The contract is nice. 1 year, $2.5 million, I think, something like that.
I think it's
2.64.
I don't know. I don't think it's too bad. I think I mean, especially as a backup, I think that's fine. I mean, obviously as a starter, and it's crazy how much money he gave away, which is crazy to think about.
Can I tell you what it is? What I think it is?
What is it?
A little news report also came out that the Lakers are considering bringing Russ off the bench, which I think is hilarious. Why are you considering that? Just do it, right? First of all, you were terrible last year. I think Dennis Schroeder is like, he's Russell Westbrook insurance. He's like, if Russ doesn't want to come off the bench and we have to send him home, there we go. We have another guard. I would imagine that's what it is.
What do you think, Brad? Good signing? Bad signing?
I like the signing. He's good on defense at like the point of attack. He can get in the lane and create his own shot. He can't shoot too much, but I mean, we needed someone else that could dribble last year because Russ just throws the ball away. Dennis can actually play make and be a floor general. He's a starting NBA player, and the Lakers don't have like too many of those. So
agreed, especially on good deals too.
So
yeah.
So Brad, are you still a Lakers fan? I saw some stuff on Twitter that you say you weren't a Lakers fan anymore. I mean, what's the deal, man? We got
there you go.
So it's been the Los Angeles LeBron since he got there.
I couldn't agree more.
But since they are going to be punting the season next year, if Russ is on there, I'm a Pelicans fan, bro. Like, there's no way. I'm a Pelicans fan. I'm a Magic fan. I'm a Bucks fan. I can't wait to watch the Bucks.
I like
The
Brad's
Lakers,
taste, Bernie. I think I like
bro.
Brad's taste more than I like yours, Bernie.
Oh, a word?
I think so. I like
the Lakers
all
are
those
a
teams.
very unserious team, bro.
All those teams Brad just named, those are my league pass squads. I like all those teams this season.
Hey, and the Pistons, I can't wait to watch them.
I like the Pistons too. I'm going to be watching them every night. I think they have just too many fun players not to watch.
Exactly, yeah. So like, yeah, I'm out on the Lakers as a serious basketball team. I was looking at their roster like a couple hours ago, but like if you actually look at their roster, it is abysmal, bro.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible.
Yeah.
Ideal world, Schroeder just learns every single thing he can from Pat Bev and just kind of becomes a slightly better offensive version of Pat Bev. That's literally the dream scenario for the Lakers. He just needs to absorb some defensive skill from Pat Beverly and just be better. Because, I mean, honestly, this is a guy that could have been on a $20 million a year contract on this same team if he had accepted the one they offered him 3 years ago. Or 2 years ago.
That is true.
So they basically got, they got the guy for 2 pennies, 2 pennies on the dollar, basically.
I know that hurts him. That would hurt my soul so deep.
Your ego. I mean, the ego.
Yeah.
It's all right. He's skateboarding. Burning. He's skateboarding in Germany right now. Just
Did he sit in kickflips? Whatever.
he's chill right now. But
dyeing his hair. He's good.
He's good. But with that being said, welcome everybody to the charge. We're now going to get into the main segment. So let me just kind of move over to the next screen so you guys can kind of see what we're talking about. Again, we're not going to be watching old 2012 clips of the Oklahoma City Thunder and LA Clippers on the screen, but we are going to talk about what most likely is going to be who do you think is going to be the most improved player. But we're going to do a topic more so on the fact that we all have different types of players who we think could make a big jump next year. So that's going to be kind of the main topic of the day. And then I think, Pete, you have one topic that's going to be our I think you told me about it. You're going to surprise us later on. So I'm excited for that one when it comes up.
It's just a question that I demand answers for. I need resolution, and I think you guys are the guys to give me the answer for it. So I need it.
Alrighty. So with that being said, let's get started here, everybody. So why don't you know what, Pete? Why don't you start first? Let's start first.
All right,
who do you think is going to be that next player to take that step up?
All right. Well, let's stick with the trend of Germans here. Mr. Dennis Schroeder being the former German. The current German I'm going to speak of is Franz Wagner. I think Franz is due.
Yes.
We're talking some Orlando Magic. Brad just brought him up. I think Franz Wagner is going to thrive this season. I mean, if you guys have seen any of this, these international games going on, Germany has really been playing very well, and Franz Wagner is a huge reason for that. I think he's averaging almost 20 points a game right now. And it's not like he wasn't doing it last season, just nobody was watching. Like, he was legitimately probably the 4th or 5th best rookie last season in a stacked rookie class in terms of his production last season. And when it comes down to it, and we've talked about this a few times, we're going to talk about it a lot more as we come closer to the season. Paolo is just, I think he's one of those guys. I think he's one of those guys that's going to make everybody on his team so much better because he's going to draw so much attention defensively. There's going to be a lot of times where you see Paolo getting double teamed. And I say that because, I mean, I kind of put an asterisk on it because they're not going to be super good. I think this is like a sneaky, like a play-in team, Orlando. Especially if Franz,
this
year? I think they really are. I think they could be. I
agree, yeah.
I think Paolo is, I would say he's a guaranteed 20-a-game scorer his rookie season. I mean, to me, he's the clear-cut rookie of the year. He's got all the tools. He's built way bigger than all these other rookies that come into the league. I mean, I said it to you a few months back, and it sounds like hyperbole, but there's not many guys that come in built 6'8", 6'9", 240, 250 like Paolo. I mean, like LeBron is one of those guys you look back and just see what he could do physically straight off the bat. And it speaks for itself. But the thing is, Paolo's got like a really refined offensive game, and that's going to open up a lot for Franz too. And I think he's got all the tools. They're going to thrive next to each other. So one thing I think too that's going to really stick out with this Magic team is Franz's playmaking skills. I think they're pretty underrated. And being able to create and, get that space with Paolo and just all these other, like, the thing with Orlando is they have so many tools. Whether or not you love any of their players, you have to like most of their players. Like they have lots of good young talent. So Franz is my number one guy. He's actually the reason I thought of this segment in the first place, just because I was watching him in these European basketball games and just I don't know, man. I see this guy as like maybe Sabonis is the highest level he's going to reach in terms of like a fringe All NBA All Star player, but I think he's better than that. I think he is. No offense
I'd
to
say he's
Sabonis
better,
fans out
for
there. I
sure.
think he is too. I think he is too. I think he's got more tools. I'm sorry, Sean. I just see more tools and I see better playmaking. I would argue way better playmaking than Sabonis, especially at this point in his career too. So I'm excited to see just how he fits in a better team in Orlando. And I think that people are going to be really surprised. Like people think of him and they think of his brother and they think of these kind of, less athletic, big European white dudes. And I don't really think he kind of fits into that mold as much. I think his offensive game is just a little too deep to be in the same league as like a guy like Nurkic, for example. I think Nurkic is fine, but he's just better than that. He's going to be better than that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Brad, do you agree with that? Is that your take?
I like I love that take. I'm a huge Franz Wagner fan, especially touching on his playmaking. I think him and Paulo together will just give teams hell because that versatility is insane. Paulo can play make, Franz can play make, and they both draw a lot of attention. So it's Wendell Carter Jr. too on the back line, who's actually hitting threes now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's nice. I love them. He is nice. He's better than Vucevic. That trade is already an L for the Bulls.
That trade is one of the biggest L's in the last 5 years. Honestly, if you go back and look at that trade, that is like a devastatingly bad trade. Because for Vucevic, they ended up with Franz and Wendell Carter Jr. Both of those guys are better than Vucevic.
Yeah, that was a terrific trade.
That trade is mind blowing. I can't believe more people don't talk about how bad that was.
Right, it should be talked about, and I think with their guards, like I'm a huge Markelle Fultz believer. I haven't given up hope. He was great when he came back for them last year. Their guards are so dynamic. Cole can score. Fultz can play make. That Magic team, they're for sure a playing team, if you ask me. Like, if you catch them sleeping, they'll beat you.
It pains me to say it. They're better than the Knicks are. Like, they
easily,
are.
Easily.
I'm a root for my Knicks no matter what, but they're better than my Knicks are. And that's just the truth. It's unfortunate. There's a lot of teams, I think, in the East that you definitely, if you're sitting there objectively, if one of these dudes takes a leap, if Paolo comes in as Rookie of the Year clear cut, I mean, I truly think they are a play-in team. I'm not even really like just saying it's a long shot, but I think they can do it.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it more in our preseason predictions, but
yeah,
I really think they're going to get there.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely
They all shoot threes too. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. They all shoot threes. That's one of the underrated things about Franz too is his three-point shooting. Like he can really shoot the ball. Paolo can shoot the ball. Wendell Carter can shoot the ball. They're a dynamic squad.
Yeah. And they have size. The whole team is just freakishly huge.
Yeah, I like Orlando a lot.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me a little bit of that team last year for the Cavaliers when they went kind of with that all pseudo big lineup and everyone was making fun of it. But this is a little bit different because now you have a guy in Franz who, again, is playing a small forward, but at 6'10", so KD-esque. You got Paulo, who's like 6'9", 6'10", I think. I can't remember his height. But again, tall.
He's like 6'11", legit.
Yeah, I think he's honestly like getting close to 6'11" now.
I mean, he's a tall dude. I mean, if you have already two guys in the backcourt plus Wendell Carter, who I believe is also 6'10", 6'11", I mean, three guys already in your starting offense is bigger than 6'10", respectively. I mean, that's going to lead to a lot of some crazy defensive switches. You can do a lot of crazy defensive things that you want, just like the Cavaliers did last year. And so I'm interested to see if the coach, I can't remember who the coach is for the Magic, but I'm hoping that
Jamal Mosley.
I'm hoping that he can kind of incorporate that type of style that Bickerstaff kind of did last year with the Cavaliers to this team, like defensively, because I think you could get a lot of great things. And like you guys were talking about, Franz, he was on my list as one of the guys that I was like, okay, this guy is definitely going to be in the running. And basically what I think this whole list comes down to is most improved player. He definitely has the ability to take that next step. I mean, again, shot 47% from the field, 35 from three. I mean, 35 is really good. Again, 32, I believe, is average. 32, I think, for me at least. But I mean, again, he could creep up into that 40% if he works on it. And for a guy his size, shooting 86% from free throw, that is a huge thing for me, especially in late game situations. Especially if you're, taking those fast break fouls now that you get free throws for it. I think it's going to lead to some good things.
Finally.
So exactly finally with that. No one wants to see you just foul so you can just kind of set up your defense. So I'm excited about it.
HUD.
Franz is going to be a good player.
One thing too. Let me throw one.
Okay.
Can I add one little guy in just so we can get away from Orlando? Yeah. One guy too I was going to talk about is Jonathan Isaac. Like, if this dude can actually get on the court with this team, he's such a perfect fit for what they need. I think people forget that Jonathan Isaac exists because he's injured so much and he just never plays. If anything, I think people know him from like when you sim an NBA like 2K20, he always wins the Defensive Player of the Year in like a season or two. He really is like that special on defense when he's healthy. So if they could get him into this lineup with all their shooting, size, versatility outside, I mean, I think people would start to, come back to terms with like, hey, this guy actually is super duper talented, and defensively, he's one of those guys that can really, start to change and impact games in a winning way. So I just think Orlando's super deep. But yeah, let's move on.
All right, Brad, do you have somebody, or do you want me to go?
Oh yeah, for sure. I got to get my propaganda out there. For sure. So I have two, but the first one would be Jaden McDaniels.
McDaniels, yep.
Okay.
This guy is a stud, honestly. I saw him play at the Jamal Crawford Pro-Am with Paulo and Paulo and Chet, and it looks like his handle has improved a lot. I know he's not playing against other NBA players, but you can see when somebody has an improved handle, they're dribbling more confidently, and he doesn't even need to play make for the Timberwolves, really. He just has to be able to attack off of what Anthony Edwards creates, off of the tension that Cat creates. And I think he can do that. We saw it in the playoffs last year. I don't think he's going to be like an all-star, but I think he'll go from fringe role player to like one of the best two-way wings in the league. Like, that's how good he is. His value is going to be ridiculous. In that series against the Grizzlies, he had a block every single game. He had 3 blocks game 1, 3 blocks game 2, a block game 3, a block game 4, 2 game 5, 1 game 6. And then game 6 is that game where he went 5 for 6 from 3, where everyone was like, okay, this guy is like, he can really be something in this league, like a two-way wing. I think once you start going down the list of two-way wings, like you mentioned Jay Crowder earlier, Bernie, I think once you start going down that list, it starts to like you have your Tatums, you have your Kawhis, but Jaden McDaniels is somewhere in that I think he will be in that 10 to 15 range of two-way players. Okay. Yeah, he's like that for real. He can play offside rim protection because he has an insane wingspan. He can shoot. He can put it on the ground. I like Jaden McDaniels a lot for that team, and he'll start since they traded Vando.
Yeah, I mean, Pete, do you want to take the reins on this one for a second?
Mr. Untouchable himself, Jaden McDaniels. I mean, this is why we need to start calling him this. He was untouchable in the Rudy Gobert trade. They said that. They made it very clear. We'd rather give you a first-round pick than get rid of Jaden McDaniels. And people clowned on the Timberwolves for doing that. And I was one of the people, I thought it was a little funny to call him untouchable, but I agreed. I would rather have that guy than a first-round pick, like a hypothetical first-round pick. Like, Jaden McDaniels has got all the tools. And one of the things I think that makes him so good for this team is he doesn't ask for a lot. He doesn't demand a lot offensively. He doesn't need the ball. He's just out there. And I think one thing too, like Brad said, he fits the squad really well. He really does, especially with their size on, up in the paint with Cat and Gobert. He's just going to have a lot of open looks. He's going to have a lot of mismatches, I think, because he's a big dude. I like it. I agree with Brad. Totally. I think Jaden McDaniels is due for a big season. That's why, I told you, Bernie, I think Minnesota is like a sleeper. If things go right for this team, whether or not you think they can win the championship, they're going to be a disgusting regular season team. They're going to be able to just crank off wins all season with their defense and size. They're just a bad matchup for a lot of teams. So I like them to be like a top 3 sneaky seed in the West. I'm not saying I think they can win, but I think they can go pretty far.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you there. I mean, Jaden McDaniels, again, like Brad said, a guy that not a lot of people talk about. Again, he's one of those guys, like in the pro-ams, he plays really well. And I think that's where, again, you could see from year one in 2020, going from 6.8 to even 9.2 the next year in the 21-22 season. Just the point totals that he kind of creates. 3-point shot wise, maybe last year was a aberration just in terms of, he shot a lot more threes this year than he did the year prior. But again, for a guy, I will always be a fan of people that can shoot over 80% from the free throw line. He's one of those guys. I know it's a weird kind of stat to look at and be like, oh, it doesn't really, I mean, it helps in terms of, you foul him, he's going to go to the line, knock them down.
Exactly. It's critical.
But again, shooting 46%, he's improving every year. So I think that like Brad said perfectly, he's going to be a guy that's going to get now even more opportunities, almost to me similar to like Andrew Wiggins last year, where, Wiggins was more so, took advantage of the fact that, it was Curry, Clay kind of taking some of the, the defensive focus away from him so he could have those one-on-one matchups. I think you could potentially see the same thing with McDaniels, especially if you
like
have
that comparison. Yeah.
Well, especially if you have guys like, Anthony Edwards, who's probably, I think that he needs to be kind of the leader or the guy on the team for me personally, for this team to really be like, okay, I can believe in this team a lot more. I love Cat, but I think for me, as much as I am a Cat defender, defensively, he still needs a lot of work to improve on. And so I'm curious to see how that works. I know they brought in Rudy Gobert for that reason, but if you can take the focus away and get, those three, at least those two guys, right, and Cat and Anthony Edwards, McDaniels can slide right in there, make those shots that Andrew Wiggins was making for the Warriors and attacking the basket and getting those mismatch opportunities like Wiggins was for the Warriors. Again, McDaniels will be a key piece for this team if they, want to go forward.
For sure.
I love it. I love the propaganda.
I'm gonna stick with the trend unless Bernie, you don't want me to do this. I actually had another Minnesota Timberwolves player.
No, go ahead.
I'll just quickly mention him, just because if we mention somebody from one team, we might as well just clear off our lists of players from that team. I think Naz Reid is another guy people are gonna see this guy and be like, wow, like I can't believe I wasn't paying attention to Naz Reid. Like he is legitimately good. I don't know if people understand that Naz Reid is as talented as he is, but he's another guy that's gonna thrive. Like this is a team that theoretically is going to have 3 All-NBA players, right? Whatever you think about Rudy Gobert, whatever you think about Cat, Anthony Edwards, I think this is Anthony Edwards' All-NBA jump season, personally. I think he's going to, I don't think all 3 of them are going to end up on All-NBA, but this is a very top-heavy team, and they're going to draw tons of attention to those 3 guys, and some of these role players are going to actually get a chance to thrive and show off, like, we actually have something else that we can do. And I think Jaden McDaniels is number 1, but I think Naz Reid is another one too. So I love Naz Reid. I can't help but just advocate. That's my propaganda for this squad.
Really quick, I'm just going to read some comments from Drunk. He said, I'll read more of your Minnesota comments more so. So Jaden McDaniels is one of those players who definitely has a lot levels to unlock. I like him. I hope Rudy Gobert and Cat work out together. If Rudy Gobert and Cat don't work out, Cat going to be the odd man out, I promise.
Should be.
You think Cat's the... Oh, I guess because you traded for Gobert, so it's like kind of...
Yeah.
I also just... Dude, we've gone over Cat forever. I just am not... I don't know. I need to see something more from him. I need to see better decision-making from Cat.
I feel like we're going to see worse this year. He's just going to shoot threes all year.
I mean, God, honestly, as long as I think this team is going to do great as long as they just let Anthony Edwards take the reins. I mean, he's clearly the best player on the team. Let him take over and see what happens.
Yeah. All right. So let's move over to my pick. I think this one, again, I'm going to go kind of like...
Wait, Bernie, my bad. I don't mean to cut you off. I had one more.
One more Minnesota guy?
No. One more. Different player who needs some love because people are really down on him.
All right, go ahead.
Christian Wood.
Okay.
I know he's in a contract year.
Okay.
I know his defense. He has really bad defensive issues. He's skinny and he doesn't try at all on that end. But if you were on the Houston Rockets, you wouldn't have tried on defense either. Like that team was not a good team at all. So I think being on the Mavericks with a good coach like Jason Kidd, who will get him to buy in defensively, and money will also motivate him. Money is the best motivator. I think the pairing with Luka also will just unlock a level of offense for him. You know, he's already really good offensively, and that was on a bad Houston Rockets team with no playmakers. KPJ, sure, but not really. So I think, you know, those pick and rolls with Luka will just be dynamite. Like, you got to double Luka, and Christian Wood can shoot it. He can finish. He's athletic. He's a rim threat. If he buys in defensively, I think the sky's the limit for him. Jason Kidd can, like, you know, really make him dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, kind of my thing that I'll say, and then Pete, you can go. The one thing I'll say about Christian Wood, if he can play like you talked about, Brad, he'll be so much better than what they had with Kristaps Porzingis, who I think that's what they expected from Porzingis, was that ability. I mean, we saw, you know, again, just not to compare the two, but, you know, Porzingis continuing to work on his body and things like that never really worked out there. But if Christian Wood can do that for them, then I think they'll be a pretty dangerous team. Again, they didn't really, I don't know. For me, I think Dallas is a little tricky because I think it's such a one-man show at this point, where I'm a little concerned with some of the pieces that they have around. I think we talked about it before, Pete, with Tim Hardaway Jr. Health-wise, continues to be injury-prone, to me at least. And I think that if you can kind of negate that a little bit, and if he can stay healthy, I think this team will be pretty good. And obviously, you know, with Luka Doncic, he's going to take over the game. Obviously going to be playing really well against the really bad teams and even the really good teams. But in order to beat the really good teams in the playoffs, he's going to really need guys like Dinwiddie, who really stepped up last year. And also, they're going to now need Christian Wood to do the same thing for them. So I kind of like that, Brad. Again, I was a big Christian Wood guy back then, but, you know, I think you're right about the Rockets. I don't think it was really the right team for him as soon as they decided to kind of blow it up and kind of went the route of like going young. And, you know, Pete's favorite thing to say, timeline. He just didn't fit that timeline of what the Rockets were trying to do then. And I think that the trade is going to work out for him.
Well, first off, before I get into Christian Wood specifically, I need to give Brad kudos because I think that's the first time anybody has unironically said on this channel that Jason Kidd is a good coach. And
he's a great coach. I love
Bernie
him.
and I have been adamant haters of Jason Kidd's coaching career before this last season. We didn't really talk about it too much in 2022, but I agree with you. I think there was definitely some significant improvement in his coaching style and what he was getting out of his players from Milwaukee to his Dallas tenure. So, I mean, I agree with you. And I think one thing with Christian Wood that's underrated is he was sold on a different set of circumstances when he went to Houston. You know, he was sold on, we're continuing this James Harden, you know, run of dominance in the West where we're going to be a top 4 seed every season and he's going to be an MVP candidate and you're a complimentary piece to him, right? And that lasted all of 2 weeks basically before we saw Fat James Harden. So I agree with you. I think this is probably one of the best fits Christian Wood could have found himself in. It's more, the only thing that always makes me hesitate with him is his willingness to not be the number one guy on a team. And I do think that's a little worrisome when you come from being on such bad teams for a few years straight. But if he can really fit the role that the Dallas Mavericks need, he's a way better version of what Porzingis was to Dallas. I mean, whatever you think of Porzingis, there's no universe, even the best version of Porzingis right now is not as good of an offensive player as Christian Wood is. So I think it's a better fit. Opens up a lot of lanes for Luka to, you know, just get somebody the ball who he knows can score, unlike, you know, Kristaps, who was always hurt for the squad and just inconsistent on top of it. But I agree. I do think that this is one of those things where this guy has just been good, and now he's going to be seen as good on a good team, which will start to change the perspective. So I agree with you. I totally agree.
All right. Let's move on to the next guy. And again, I talked about it. I think I'm going to go kind of like easy mode and then go hard and see if you guys agree with me with some of these picks. So I'm curious to see what you guys think. So I think number one for me is going to be Tyrese Halliburton.
Okay. Ooh, I like it.
I think for me, I liked and another guy that I'm going to add to him is also Chris Duarte. I've really liked what he did in the summer league. I've been liking the growth and progression that he's had throughout that year. But more specifically to Tyrese Halliburton, I continuously think about the Sacramento Kings and how they continue to make mistakes. And I think that this is going to be one of them. again, I come from, maybe I'm a homer for Halliburton. I was watching him in the pre-draft, kind of watching his progression and seeing how he played. The biggest question mark was always his jump shot, kind of the same thing that happened with Lonzo back when he was getting drafted. A lot of people were concerned about it. Will it work in the NBA? Won't it work in the NBA? But clearly, after a couple of years now, 4 years in the league, it's clearly working. And you can clearly see that he is improving each and every, or I guess the 2 years. I don't know why I'm thinking that he's a 4-year vet. But for the last 2 years, he's been improving. His numbers have improved. The stats have improved. And, going from 5.3 assists his rookie year to going to 8.2 in his sophomore year, I can't think of a guy that will make the Kings regret that decision. I mean, I've talked about it before with him. He was pissed when he got traded. He wasn't happy that he ended up going, not the fact that he go into Indiana, but the fact that the Sacramento Kings gave up on him that early. And I'm kind of curious to see why that is. I would love to kind of be a fly on the wall in that meeting room where they're deciding between him and De'Aaron Fox.
Whole front office is drunk.
That is 100% true. I don't think I doubt that one bit, especially with the owner as well, also drunk as well. Because I feel like they never could make I feel like both the front office and the owner can't make a decision together that works out for the team. But going back to the Tyrese Halliburton kind of Indiana, I'm not saying that this team is going to be anything special. I think that they still need a couple of pieces before I can consider them being in that echelon of, okay, they're gonna do something. But I think Tyrese Halliburton's gonna be on a mission this year to kind of prove the Sacramento Kings wrong. And I think he's gonna be a 20-point per game scorer this year, and I think he's gonna average the same amount of assists. I'm really convinced with the way that he plays. I'm convinced with the way that he is as a ball player. Again, shooting, I believe, 41% from three is awesome. Shooting about 47% for the floor for his career so far, not bad. But I mean, the 3-point shot to me is what's going to make him kind of one of the best players. And again, Pete, you can probably tell by what players I like, what type of point guard I like in the NBA. Mm-hmm. So, I think that he's one of those guys. What do you guys think?
I think one of the ultimate travesties with this Indiana Pacers team is that Ayton contract didn't go through. Because, if they had gotten Ayton on that nice contract that Phoenix now has, luckily managed to just get back, that's the way it works. But he's a perfect fit next to what Tyrese Halliburton is going to bring to this Pacers team. I don't know if there's a lot of people that would agree with me necessarily, but when I look at Tyrese Halliburton, I see, and I'm not necessarily comparing just the way they play, but kind of the calmness and the collectedness he brings to the team around him. I see a young Chris Paul. There's just a lot of continuity with the way he runs a team in terms of ball handling responsibility and distributing it to everybody else. But like you said, man, I mean, he is a legitimate 3-point threat. Indiana, we saw I think it was their GM came out and said that he wants him to be their next oh my God, Reggie Miller. There you go. I forgot Reggie Miller's name for a second. Excuse me. But I like it, man. I think Tyrese Halliburton is going to be a star. I still can't believe that Sacramento made that trade, like you said. I think every team in the NBA needs to look at Sacramento and just do the opposite of what they do 9 times out of 10. And this is a great example. I mean, I can't fathom why you would choose, and this is no shade directly at De'Aaron Fox. I don't know the guy, but I don't know why you would choose choose him over Tyrese Halliburton. I don't know how any of his on-court production has led you to believe he's a better player. I don't get it. If anything, he's a more inefficient. He's kind of closer to a Westbrook player, De'Aaron Fox. And then you have Tyrese Halliburton, who is kind of this glue guy in terms of how he gets everybody involved, and you choose to go that direction. I don't get it. I don't get it. I agree. I would honestly say you're going to be proven right more so just by the fact that people are going to see Tyrese Halliburton on his own and say, oh, yeah, this is how good he already was. This is just a good player, right? Mm-hmm. I don't even know how much of a leap he can take. He was really good last year. So I like it. I think he's going to keep getting better for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you guys because the way he plays the game is he plays the right way. He gets everybody involved. He can shoot the three. He can get to the cup. He doesn't finish the best, but he has that little high running floater that's pretty money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't understand at all why the Kings decided to go through with that trade. It's probably as bad as that Vucevic trade, if we're being honest, because Sabonis is on the decline. Yeah, and they did it to
Sabonis
appease
is better than
De'Aaron
Vucevic,
Fox.
though, so that's
Agreed,
something. But
agreed.
it still doesn't make a difference for their team.
Yeah, they had Tyrese his first year playing off the ball, and they had De'Aaron running the show, and then they were like, okay, let's let Tyrese run the show and see how this works out. And they were winning more games with Tyrese running the show. And then they ended up trading him to appease De'Aaron because he wanted to be on ball. Like, it didn't, that whole trade made no sense. They did Tyrese dirty. He's absolutely right to be mad. But I think he's going to thrive in Indiana, especially since they're making him the focal point. And they're going to suck. They won't win many games. They might be in the Wembanyama sweepstakes, honestly. but they'll be fun to watch because they have a point guard that gets everybody involved in the game, and he knows how to play the game. I love Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah. And what do you guys think of Chris Duarte? I kind of mentioned him as well as a player last year. You know, again, older guy than most of these players that are kind of rising up again. You know, 24 years old. We think that's old, but you know, it's not really that old. But you know, a guy that again kind of had a good solid campaign. But you know, the summer league stuff I saw kind of made it seem like he was again another guy that you compare with Tyrese Halliburton. Is he a guy that you could see making that next jump? I mean, he averaged 13 last year. I know it's the Indiana Pacers. I know they're not a very good team, but is that someone that could take that next step? Do you guys think?
I'm gonna say no. I like Duarte. I see what you mean, Bernie, but he is on the Pacers, and he is on the older side. So I think for them, he's more of like a value piece. You know, like they'll be able to squeeze out. You know, like they'll be able to squeeze out his talent and showcase it. And I think they probably move him for a pick. He's a guy that could like contribute on the team right now. Like if you put him on the Lakers, he should start. To be honest.
Yeah, it's kind of tough because what even is a jump for a guy like Duarte? Like, I really think like the best version of Duarte is like
what he is now.
He's kind of like a taller JJ Redick, like a premium 3-point shooter with some size, right? So I don't necessarily think this is his best situation just because I still don't think Indiana is going to be very good. Like, I think they're definitely going to have some growing pains this season, even though I think like Tyrese Halliburton, we didn't even talk about this guy. He's going to be so complimentary to Benedict Mathurin on this team, just what they do. I really like the pairing between them, which I think goes well for Tyrese Halliburton too. Like, it makes more sense to me to put him next to a guy like Mathurin than it does De'Aaron Fox. But Duarte, I agree with Brad. I think he would shine a little bit more on a better team, like an actual contending team where he could be a specialist type of player. But we'll see. I mean, he's really talented. I mean, he was off on a heater in the beginning of last season where people were like, oh my gosh, who is this guy? You know, I think he averaged like 17 points, 18 points for the first few weeks of the season. Then it kind of tailed off for their whole team. Yeah. So we'll see. I think he's got another level in him, but I just still, at his best, he's just like a premium role player in the NBA.
Yeah.
True. All right, Pete, you got someone else for us?
Yes. All right. This is tough because I have so many guys I would like to talk about on so many teams we haven't mentioned, but I'm going to go with one that I think is the most, I'm just going to go with the most talented guy that I have written down.
Oh, don't say it. Don't say it. I don't know who it is.
Who do you think it is, Bernie? I would like to hear your guess before I say it.
No, I think
Taylor Horton Tucker.
Right, don't say it because if it's not your first, it's THT. You're right.
It's 19-year-old Jason Tatum. He's still 19, by the way. Mo Bamba.
It's not Mo Bamba. It's Michael Porter Jr.
Michael Porter Jr.
Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. is one of those guys, and you know, I mentioned a guy like Jonathan Isaac earlier too, just an injury-prone guy. I truly believe that Michael Porter Jr. probably could have played at the end of last season. I really do. I think it was one of those things where they just felt like, you know, Jamal Murray's not playing anyway. Let's not rush any of these guys back. It's not our season. You know, we don't need to do that. Jokic, we got to the playoffs anyway. Everybody's cool waiting one season, right? One of the things that I just don't think people understand about Michael Porter Jr. is he's basically 6'11" Klay Thompson. He basically is. If you go look statistically at what Michael Porter Jr. brings to your team, and less so defensively, he's still a pretty good defender, but he's not like prime Klay lockdown defender. He's not that level on defense. I will be straight up with you. He's not that good, but he's great. His 3-point shooting and shot creation ability, catch and shoot, he's just so good off ball in terms of getting open, and then with the size and just the stroke that this dude has, I think a healthy season of a Nuggets team that like really genuinely could have made it to the finals a couple years ago if that Jamal Murray injury didn't happen. I think people are going to start waking up and realizing like this guy is so good. He just needs to stay on the court. Like the contract is terrible just because he doesn't play. But he's so incredibly talented. I mean, he is the prototype of what you would want in a 6'10", stretch forward nowadays. He's kind of like prototype Bosh if Bosh could have stayed healthy into this era of basketball, right? But I don't even really have a ton to say because I think people know he's good. Just don't think people realize how good he truly is, especially if this team can stay healthy and get all these guys on the court together. It's just more space for MPJ to really like cook, and I just would love to see it, man. He might honestly be one of the most complimentary players to Nikola Jokic that you could even cherry pick in the NBA. It's just getting him on the court together, and I think too, go look at his shooting splits. I mean, this dude can shoot the hell out of the ball. He really can. In terms of 6'10", 6'11" guys, there's not many guys that have the bag that this dude does. And, we saw that little headline that came out the other day about Karl Anthony Towns said he was like didn't he say he was the greatest offensive forward of all time? I see that right?
Something like
that. I saw that. Yeah.
He said
just
something.
like, it's players like MPJ where I look and it's just like, I don't even know if that is true nowadays. And that's no shade necessarily at Cat. It's more just like, there's more of these guys that come into the league every season just because this is how players are growing up nowadays. They're learning to shoot at such a young age. And, I've always been big on MPJ, but I would love to see him with this Denver team go and just really prove that this squad is as good as they should have been a couple of years ago and have been for the last few years. So what do you guys think?
Brad, you go first.
There was some disdain voice, Bernie. What was that? I want to hear Bernie.
I'm with Bernie. If he's against that, I'm gonna push back Pete. I'm not an MPJ fan at all, to be honest. Like I think the idea of MPJ is better than the player. I agree he's talented. He's 6'10", pushing 6'11". He's got a high release point. He can shoot it like butter. Like you're right. He's extremely talented. I actually thought it was a crime he fell as low as he did in the draft, but I understand the injuries with his back. But I think he's a traffic cone on defense. Like every time I watch him, he gets cooked by anybody and everybody. He cannot slide his feet to save his life, and he doesn't try to because he's so focused on offense. It's kind of sad because he has all the tools, he has all the length, he has all the height. If he just got a little bit stronger, put a little more effort into defense, he could be an okay to great defender, but he doesn't do any of that. Another thing with his shooting is I think you're right. He's a great pairing for Jokic because he has the height, he has the touch, he can shoot from deep, but he's not as consistent as you would think, and he can't create off the dribble. He can really split up and shoot super well, but off the dribble, it gets hectic because he can't really dribble. He dribbles above his waist.
He does have his moments. I kind of overestimated his I was really trying to hype him up a little bit. I really do think he's better than you guys think he is, but you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Yeah. I get it. I'm not saying he's a scrub. He's talented, but it's just the idea of him sounds so good, but you actually see him on the court. And I may be biased because I picked him third or fourth in fantasy last year, thinking he would have a breagot year, and he was terrible. I got off him though before he got injured, which was a miracle.
That's good.
He
only played
9 games that he played.
I got rid of him. I got rid of him after the second game he played because I was like, "There's no way this guy's good at all." He put up 9 fantasy points, and I was like, you're gone, bro. You're off my team." But
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and that's how I made that trade, was with like the potential, the idea of him, and then he was terrible and ended up getting out for the rest of the season. So coupling his tendencies on defense, his inability to shot create, and then his injuries, I just don't like him that much.
Yeah. I mean, that's where kind of the venom came from, Pete, on my side. More so it's just because I think the injury for me is the biggest thing for Michael Porter Jr. That's kind of holding him back, because I feel like he had a great year the year before, his contract year, got that money, and then got hurt again. And I don't know if it's kind of a chronic thing, and kind of the reason why he fell in the draft that year was because they were concerned about the back injury. And now that it's appeared a second time, I'm a little bit concerned about that. Again, I think Brad is right, and I think you're right as well, Pete. Like, the idea of Michael Porter Jr. as a player, the stats, everything that he can do, I love it. But for me, I think the Nuggets, and we'll talk about it in the preseason prediction show when we do it. I'm a little bit concerned for them this year, because if those guys cannot stay healthy, what they need from them, I just feel like the Nuggets are gonna again fall in the standings, and it's not gonna look pretty. And I know that Jokic signed that big contract, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's like, I want out.
I don't see that happening.
Because I mean, I understand he's not going to be a guy that says it out loud, because he's more of like a quiet guy. But again, you need this guy, Michael Porter Jr., with his new blonde hair. You're gonna need him to be last year's Michael Porter Jr., or not last year, 2 years ago, which was a guy that, again, you need him to play a little bit more of the games. Only played 60 last year. I would like that to be 65 to 70. But again, like you said, averaged 19 points, was a 45% 3-point shooter. I mean, those are the things that you love to see. But when will I see it? That's the biggest question mark for me. And you guys are right on defense. I mean, again, traffic cone, can't really stay in front of anybody. And again, as much as you love the offensive abilities of Michael Porter Jr., you better make sure that your offensive output outweighs your defensive negativity. Because if you can't do that, then I think it's worth just putting him on the bench. And, maybe coming off the bench.
Coming off the bench, yeah. Although you can't do that with the money they just gave him, but
I think he's too good. The only before I rest my case and I move on and I accept defeat, 2-3 on this one. One thing I will say is we have seen this dude in absolutely 0 minutes of his optimal situation, right? His first season he didn't play because of his back. I mean, I think his medical reports are like kind of infamous amongst like NBA execs. Like, I've heard numerous people say he had the worst medical returns they've ever seen before the draft. So like that's definitely not great, right? For sure. We'll just slide that under the bed though. We'll move on past that. First season was the coronavirus bubble season, right? And it obviously didn't go very well. I mean, Jamal Murray was great in the bubble, and then, he ends up getting hurt, right? 2021 season is Michael Porter Jr.'s best season, but there's no Jamal Murray the entire season. They're second best. I mean, they're running Will Barton as their lead guard on that team, basically, right? I mean, it's Jokic is really the guard on the team when it comes down to it, but there was no playmaking on that team other than Jokic, and the guards were just so bad. And he still was averaging 45% from three on almost 7 attempts per game. I mean, that's pretty disgusting from a 6'10", almost 7-foot guy. So this is more projection than anything. I really just think we've never seen him play in an optimal situation. And I truly think he just has not been fully healthy at the right time ever in his career. Like last season, like we talked about, he played 9 games. He averaged 20% from three in 9.9 points. Like, he wasn't healthy even in those 9 games. He just shouldn't have played. And I think Denver was one of those teams last year that really just saw the writing on the wall from the beginning. Like, we might as well just get this dude healthy. And how many times did we hear him in trade rumors too, for like literally almost every day up until the trade deadline? But his contract is so bad. So it's projection. I agree with you guys. I can't really debate much of it. The injury history is disgusting. The defensive, quality so far in his career has been pretty disgusting too. But It's just he's got all the tools, man. I got to keep collecting all my Michael Porter Jr. stock. I think he's got it.
Hopefully those are not worth penny to the dollar, but let's
Michael Porter Jr. is my GameStop, okay?
Oh my gosh.
All right. Let's move on to my next guy. I think that this one, I'm not sure what you guys are going to think about this one, but I'm going to go with kind of my next surprise player is Onyeka Okongwu. I think that he's a guy that, again, when we talk about the Hawks, we talked about the DeJounte Murray, we talked about Trae Young, hell, we even talked about John Collins. But I think Onyeka could be a guy next year that could develop really nicely. I know that a lot of people forget or don't remember that he was with the Ball brothers back in high school. He played really well. I think he was an All-American, if I remember right. I think that, again, is he going to be a guy I think that he could be a guy that helps out and could be a better version of Clint Capella than what they have right now. I think that maybe they're kind of trying to get him to that next spot. But I think that he could be a guy that could take the next step. Again, went from 4.6 the year before to about 8.2 the next year. The only concern for him, for me personally, is making sure that he is healthy and stays on the court. Last year, played only 48 games. The year before that, 50 games. Again, my standard is, and I said it here on the charge, was it needs to be about 65 to 70 games that he needs to play. So if he can up that, and if he can kind of continue that growth and progression, which I think he can, I think that Onyeka Okongwu could be a great, valuable asset for the team. And again, the Hawks need to rebound after what happened last season, right? They went to the Eastern Conference Finals, and then they faltered off this last year. They need to get back on track, and I think that by adding DeJounte Murray, by bringing in Onyeka Okongwu, well, not bringing him in, but they drafted him, letting him grow and develop, I think he could be a guy that could potentially do some damage for the Hawks.
I agree, but I have a question. Yeah,
let's hear it.
What do you do with Clint Capella if Onyeka is coming into his own, and how do you split up their minutes?
I'm looking to trade Clint.
You think so? Because I think Clint is a good rebounder. He was I want to say he was a top 4 rebounder, and I don't think Onyeka could do that for you. And I also don't think he's as good of a rim protector. He's more versatile, switching wise. He can guard on the perimeter. Clint can't really do that. But I don't know. I like Onyeka, but I would think that you probably get about the same from him next year. Maybe 2 more points than you did this year if he gets some more playing time.
The reason I'd say I'm torn is I agree with you in theory, Bernie. I would rather have Okongwu on this team. If I'm a Hawks fan, I would rather go with Okongwu, but I don't really think it solves any problems. I think you're kind of in the same situation, but for slightly different reasons. I don't really like either of them. I think the negatives that come with Okongwu are kind of interchangeable with the negatives that come with Clint Capella, and it's long been documented. I'm not a big Clint Capella person. I think, honestly, it's one of the biggest mistakes the Hawks have made the last few seasons. In terms of they're getting far into the playoffs, I think it's really, really hard to play that far into the playoffs with a center who can't really go anywhere outside the paint, offensively or defensively. He can't really go anywhere that far away from the paint. And Okongwu is not that dissimilar. He's not a good shooter. He doesn't even really shoot. I don't even know if he takes 3-point attempts ever. I don't know if I've ever seen it. So
he vowed for a new jump shot, though. He's vowing, and I trust those vows.
Bernie, you have long trusted the vows of new jump shots. It's been well documented on the charts.
Hey, Lonzo got a new one, and it's better. All right,
you did it. You were right about that one. You were right about that one. But man, I don't know. I'm torn. I really, the Hawks, I just think don't have the right centers for their team. Really don't. I just don't think he's the answer. I think he's better than Clint Capella, but I still don't think he's the answer for what they need.
What about a guy like DeAndre Hunter? Is that a guy that you think could take another step, or is he kind of where he's at?
No, I think DeAndre Hunter is way better than people think he is. I don't know if he's going to take a huge leap, but I just don't think people realize he's as good as he is. Mm-hmm. He's an incredible defender, and on top of just being an all-around pretty solid player. We've talked about it. I think the Hawks are just another team. They need a trade so bad. And I know they just traded for DeJounte Murray, but I just hate the bigs on this team. I really don't like what it provides in terms of versatility for their squad.
Mm-hmm.
And having a guy as small as Trey, who's as bad of a defender as Trey, and I know that's the point they go get DeJounte Murray for his defensive skills, but I still think it's really hard in the NBA now to pair as bad and small of a defensive guard as Trey is with any big that just can't move outside of the paint. I don't think they don't go together. That's why we love Cleveland so much, Bernie. I mean, that team is built to have small guards on their team, like Donovan Mitchell and Garland. Like, they're built because Mobley, even Jared Allen a little bit, can get outside and start guarding people on the perimeter and, taking on some more defensive responsibility. So we'll see. I mean, Okongwu is a guy that is definitely going to get better. It's just, is he going to get better in a way that's going to lead you to more wins or more success? And I have question marks about that.
Okay. And
I agree with that take.
Anybody got any other players to talk about?
I mean, I have, let me go with one more person we can talk a little bit more in depth about, and then I'm just going to shoot off like 4 or 5 people quick, rapid fire.
Yeah, because I got to get
Wait,
soonish.
Let me get one propaganda off real quick.
Go for it. Hit us with the propaganda.
Jalen Williams on OKC.
Love it.
Yes.
The guard, not the big man. He's sensational, and I think he'll make an all-rookie team.
I agree with that. 100%.
Yeah. The game he plays, he's just so smooth. He's great defensively. He has an almost 7'3" wingspan. It was actually one of the longest recorded wingspans relative to his height in recent history. And then he can shoot it. And the biggest thing for me is he can play make. He can dribble. He played PG at Santa Clara. Great in the pick and roll. I really like Jalen Williams, and I think he'll eat playing next to Shea and playing next to Giddey, because all he has to do is spot up and cut, and he does both of those great.
If this bum ass OKC team has any hopes of keeping their grubby little mitts on Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, it's this guy. It's Jalen Williams this season is going to keep him happy. Produce. I like Jalen Williams a lot. I totally agree with you, and especially your take. I mean, it's that Jalen Williams, not the other one. I don't feel the same way about the other one.
Definitely agree with you guys. Jalen Williams, great player, underrated because he went to Santa Clara. A lot of people don't know about him, but he's a really good player. Like I don't think people realize that. I know they probably don't really watch some stuff, but watch the summer league stuff that he was in. Even with
nasty at summer league,
like he benefited from having Giddey out there from Chet, and it just only exemplified what type of player he can be in the NBA.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I like Jalen Williams a lot. All right, here's my last big one before we move on to my rapid fire people. I think that this dude is clearly getting better. It's more just a matter of now people are going to see him in a better team with the actual star of the team is back, and that's Anthony Simons. I think Anthony Simons is like a legitimate, talented, borderline fringe all-star. And I think he's kind of the perfect ideal replacement for CJ McCollum in Portland. I almost think he's like a better version of CJ McCollum in Portland, just because I think he's a little bit more athletic. I think he's a better shooter, which some people might debate. I just think he's shown a little bit more earlier on. I think he's a little bit more versatile. But listen to this split right here. This is last season without Damian Lillard, by far the clear-cut best player on the team. He's playing 29.5 minutes a game, averaging he's shooting about 40% from 3 on almost 8 attempts. He's shooting 40% on 8 attempts. This dude is 23 now. He's 22 in that season, and he went up from 7.8 points all the way to 17.3 points. This guy is I'm very interested by Portland just with all the tools and the size they've added and all these like Jeremy Grant I think is really interesting. You know how I feel about Shaedon Sharpe, Bernie, if he can get healthy and stay on the court. But just the fact that Damian Lillard is coming back and taking off pressure from this Portland team and drawing as much attention as Dame does, I think people are going to see a different side of Anthony Simons because now he doesn't need to be the guy. And last year with Portland, there was a lot of games. They were so bad, I don't think a lot of people watched them. But there was games where he was like winning them games, and they were like, dude, we're trying to tank right now. We want a better draft pick. Like, you're playing too good. Stop. Get out of here, right? It was kind of like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander with OKC. They're like trying to hide this guy because he's winning them games they shouldn't be winning. So People need to keep an eye on Anthony Simons. He's one of those guys that if I'm Portland, and this is I think why they made the choice they did to get rid of CJ McCollum, you might even just end up with like I was saying, a better version of CJ in the actual 2 all-star guard lineup that they've been looking for these years that they kept running that back. So what do you guys think of Anthony Simons?
Bernie, you want to go or you want me to go first?
You go first.
Okay. Anthony Simons is someone I like. I picked him up in fantasy too, actually, last year. But I do have a couple issues with him. I think that like he can shoot, like you said, he can really shoot it. I do think he's a better shooter than CJ from 3. CJ's probably got the mid-range better. But it's kind of the same issue they had with CJ pairing him with Dame, is that neither one can guard anybody really. Like we saw Monte Morris and Facu Campazzo look like Stephon Marbury, and like they looked amazing against CJ and Dame because they can't guard anything. And it's kind of the same with Simons. He has all that athleticism, but he doesn't use it on defense. Not really on offense either. He prefers just to shoot threes. Like if you look at his numbers, he had a heavy shot diet of threes last year. And I don't know how much stock I can take into his production because the Blazers were, like you said, like one of the worst teams in the league last year.
Sure.
It was terrible. But I do think he's supremely talented. I think he'll be, able to produce on a good team next to Jeremy Grant, next to Dame. But I wouldn't call him fringe all-star. I would call him like an above average role player.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be an all-star
Jordan
this
Poole
season, by the way. I think he's a better version of Jordan Poole. That's kind of what I was going to go with it. I think
they're pretty close. Like I think he's probably
just as good of a ball handler as Jordan Poole is.
I need to see more though from Simons before I put him next to Poole.
Just need to see him on a good team.
Joins the Poole party.
I
was in
the
Poole. Perfect situation. It's like to me, it's apples and oranges as far as comparing their situations. But yeah, he could do that. He could be. I honestly think he could be a better version of Poole on Golden State if you swap him.
Definitely not. But Poole is a better finisher, actually. So he's so crafty around the rim. I think Simons takes shooting though.
Yeah, I think Simons is a better decision maker too, though. So this will be an interesting season. I don't think he's an all-star this year just because I think their team is still pretty bad. I think they're kind of like a fringe play-in, maybe the 8 seed, 7 seed type of team. But we'll see, man. I think it'll be interesting because one thing too, last thing I'll say for Simons, usually if you're a good stats, bad team kind of guy, the efficiency is the thing that's not there, right? But he was uber efficient last season. Like I said, 40% from 3, and he shot almost 90% free throw accuracy. So that's not very common amongst, good stats, bad team guys. So I think it's for real. I'm interested to see what he does with Dame next to him.
Yeah. And I don't necessarily disagree. I think Simons can definitely contribute. I think I'm with Brad on this one, just more so from the fact that I kind of want to see him on a good team. When Portland can get better and add those players that they need to, I want to see how he does. Because again, he 3-point shooting wise, amazing. Every year that he's played, he's shot really well, shot above 34% for me. So that's definitely something that you have to look at and say, okay, we need to take this guy seriously on 3-point shooting. But it's the other stuff that I'm kind of concerned about. I kind of want to see a little bit more from shooting at the rim, more mid-range, especially if he's going to be the CJ McCollum replacement. He needs to kind of have those CJ McCollum isms in there. Again, not saying that that's kind of what the Blazers need, because they obviously need something different, because clearly they traded both, kind of separated those two guys because it didn't work out. But, I think it's a wait and see for me. I'm not convinced on him that he can, like you talked about, being an all-star, but definitely a really good role player to even above average, like Brad was saying.
Very much so. Very much so. I definitely think he's better than you guys, but this is going to be a big season for him. You got to see these guys in better situations to really get a better idea of what it is. Do
you want to do your rapid fires?
Let me just give my rapid fires real
quick.
Before
you do that,
Josh Giddey. Oh, no, sorry.
No,
you go for it.
I just want to read Sean's comments because he's whining in the chat. Jalen Suggs will win most improved. I thought you were talking about Jalen Williams, the flop artist they drafted.
No, we're talking about the good one.
Yeah, the good one. The other Jalen Williams won't last long. I hate to say
Probably
that,
not.
but yeah.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I didn't see much from him. All right, my rapid fire players. I think Josh Giddey is going to have an incredible season.
No doubt.
Whether Chet's there or not, Josh Giddey is a special player, in my opinion. New Steve Nash. Sadiq Bey. I think Sadiq Bey is just a better team. Sadiq Bey, we saw him put up 50 points in a game last season. He's legitimately a very talented NBA player, and now he has actual talented NBA players around him. Herb Jones, Pelicans, are going to have a great season. One of the best defenders on one of the most fringe championship contendery type teams. I would love to see him make it far in the playoffs. Bones Highland, we talked about Denver, just I didn't mention him. Another situation where if they can get their guys healthy, Bones Highland was really good last season. It's just another dude on a talented team. You know, hopefully we get to see him in the playoffs. And then the homer pick of all,
Kevin Knox.
Kevin Knox is an Atlanta player now, Bernie. Okay, I don't root for Kevin Knox anymore.
Pistons, actually.
I could say RJ. I think RJ is a little easy. I'm actually going to say Quentin Grimes. A lot of talk about Quentin Grimes.
Oh yeah,
a lot of talk about Quentin Grimes.
We're going to talk about him when the draft comes or when the preseason rankings, because you know they decided that was a guy they were not going to get rid of for the Mitchell trade. So I want to hear your opinions on him when we do our preseason.
We'll talk about him more, but Quentin Grimes is the real deal. I like Quentin Grimes a lot. I think he's going to really show people. And Bernie, you were high on him before the draft. He's going to show people why Tibbs loves him so much. I think this is going to be a great season for him.
Brad,
let me ask you my last question real quick, Bernie. Or actually, go for Brad, and then I'm going to ask you guys the question. I'm going to leave this hanging there while we leave today.
You got any rapid fires, Brad? Any rapid fire?
Let me give me 1 second to think. Dalen Terry on the Chicago Bulls. I think with Lonzo getting hurt, he's going to showcase his playmaking and his defense and his versatility. He's a great player. Keldon Johnson. Spurs will be terrible, but he'll be, you know,
such a good contract they got him on.
Yeah, exactly. He'll be
eating.
Exactly. Rui Hachimura, who I pray the Cavs trade for because his value is at an all-time low.
He was on my list.
Oh.
Hey, let's go.
He's on my list.
Did not sniff my list, but
if the Cavs could trade for him, they would be contenders, serious contenders.
Yeah.
And last one,
Tyrese Maxey.
Sadiq Bey was on my list. I love Tyrese, but no, I think he'll do more or less of what he did last year. Marjon Beauchamp. I think he'll fit in nicely on the Bucks.
Yeah, I like Beauchamp a lot. He fits so well with Milwaukee. It's such a great pick.
Just has to play his role. It'd be perfect.
Yep.
Any for you, Bernie?
I think Brad took my number one guy, which was Rui. I think he can bounce back, man. It's just he needs to get traded, or the Wizards have to decide who the players, and we talked about it before, who are going to be the main guys that they want to focus on. Because I feel like they have a lot of guys that they're like, you know, it's kind of like, you know, you're in the dating field, you know, you're like, oh, I want to try this, I want to try that. No, it's like you need to decide if this is the person that you're staying with, or are you moving on? Because you can't just drag this guy along. You have to be committed on this guy. But I think I'm with Brad. They trade him. I think he'll do a lot better.
I agree with you. It's tough though. He's one of the ultimate, like, I gotta see it. I just haven't seen it. You know, it's just a lot of talk for a guy that has it all and just has not maybe even put like 5 games together. So we'll see.
The tools are there. Yeah.
The tools are there. Tools are certainly there.
All right, Pete. Do you want to ask your final question?
I don't know if I want to ask it because I think it's too much of a conversation, but I'm gonna throw it out there, and then Bernie, we can dive into this conversation a little bit more in depth later. All right, because I have explanations, but this is my mic drop. I'm signing off as soon as I ask you the question. All right. Based on recent events coming to light with Drake, okay, is Drake the Kevin Durant of rap music? Ooh. Is Kevin Durant the Drake of the NBA? And I ask this because I'm curious, like a chicken and egg type situation, which inspired which, or who inspired who, and why are they both the same sensitive guys? Why do they do the same sensitive things? I'm fascinated by it. That's it. Bernie, think about it. We're going to dive into this. I wrote up like 5 bullet points. They're almost a paragraph long each. I have reasons.
Lord. Okay.
I have reasons. I have explanations. Think about it. Chat, think about it. Tell us in the chat what you think. Leave comments. Why are these dudes so sensitive? Why are they so talented? And why can't they get out of their own heads? What's happening? All right, that's it. There you go. That was my get up, good morning segment.
Get up, good morning segment. Alrighty, everybody. That's going to do it here for the charge. Thank you once again for joining us. Again, I do apologize. I have a basketball camp to run, so I will have to be getting out really quick. But, thank you, Brad. Thank you, Pete, for coming on. We'll definitely have to do this. We'll definitely have to have both of you here, maybe even Tyrese too, to kind of hold his feet to the fire about the Garland thing, because I know Brad texted me
that
about
Tyrese,
it.
Yeah, I gotta rip him for that. Yeah.
So why don't we do this? We'll definitely do a preseason prediction show with all of us. We'll get together. We'll talk about it. And I'm curious to hear what you guys have as your top 15 for both conferences. And, who you think is going to win the championship. We obviously will talk about that. Maybe in a different segment, we'll do rankings, preseason rankings first, or like who we think. Then we'll do championship, MVP, all that stuff. But with that being said, thank you guys for tuning on, and we'll catch everybody on the next episode of The Charge. Please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Again, all that stuff leads to better content quality here on The Charge. And again, we're excited to kind of bring some stuff up in the next couple of weeks. Anyway, guys, we'll catch you later. Peace out, everybody.